Hello and welcome to your video lecture for chapter 22, which is about a major turning point in world history known as industrialization or the Industrial Revolution. So let us begin with a definition of industrialization. And it is defined as the process where a country transforms from a agricultural society to one where manufacturing of goods is going to be the focus, where instead of using human or animal labor and power to produce goods, machines and fossil fuels will be used to produce goods. Instead of making everything by hand, things will now be made by machines. So industrialization is this huge process. It will start in Europe, spread to North America, spread to Russia, to Japan, and by the 20th century, throughout most of the world. So before we understand what industrial societies were, let's go ahead and take a quick look back at what pre-industrial societies were like. And basically, pre-industrial societies include every society on Earth that we've covered in world history until around 1750. Because after the 1750s, in other words, into Unit 5, the modern era, we see industrialization slowly start happening. So that means before that time period, before 1750, this is the way most people lived on Earth since the beginning of human history. They lived in the countryside, on farms. They grew their own food. They made their own clothes. Sometimes they produced goods that they can sell, or sometimes they can barter to purchase those goods. And everything was localized. Right, very few products, unless you were extremely rich, would be from far away places, like using the Silk Road or the Indian Ocean, or the transatlantic slave trade networks. Right. So up to this point in world history, again, everything was very, very localized. Right, with trade, of course, but not too much. Now, before this time period, we see a process had been taking place in Europe. This was known as the cottage industry, or the putting out system. And basically, the cottage industry created a demand for cotton goods. So what used to happen in the past was that if I was a cotton textile merchant, right, I would have to produce my own goods, right, my own cotton textiles. I would have to grow it. I would have to weave and spin the cloth into, the cotton fibers into cloth, and then, sew that cloth into clothing. And then I could sell it, and make a profit. And this was a very slow process because you would have to do from step 1 through step 10 all by yourself. And it was guarded in the sense that there were other cotton clothing, cotton textile merchants and producers that were part of a guild. So you had to meet their standards or pay their requirements. But what we start seeing is that in the previous time period, which is time period for the early modern era, with the increased amount of trade, a global trade that is occurring, we see that there's going to be a brand new supply of cotton. So the British East India Company, which has trading posts in India, is going to start making purchases of cloth, of cotton, raw cotton, right? And they're going to buy it at a very low price because the Indians are producing it in incredible amounts of supply. So what starts happening is little by little, all this cotton makes its way back to Britain. So if I'm a cotton merchant, right, instead of me making all the clothing, which takes forever, I'm going to hire someone else to do it for me. I'm going to hire a peasant to do it for me. And I'm going to pay them a wage depending on how much clothing they produce for me. And then I can sell that same clothing at a profit. So what starts happening is that it's this system, the cottage industry system, develops this new kind of like agreement that people are going to start working and getting paid, and that I will provide you the materials for you to work if I'm the business owner, but once I sell the products, I get to keep the profit. So this is the beginnings of the Industrial Revolution, and it's going to take place in Britain. So the demand for cheap cotton goods, right? You have all this cheap raw cotton coming from India, but now how do you turn that into clothing, into textiles, and into making it, and selling it as quickly as possible to make a profit? The answer, of course, is mechanization, the use of machines. So new machines are going to be used to speed up the process of production. And the problem was that these machines tended to be very expensive, so not everyone could have it, and they tended to be very big, so you couldn't really transport it, from one household to another household in rural villages. So the end result is that you're going to have a central location that's going to house these machines, and instead of you going to the worker's house so that they can work, they're going to come to your property. They're going to come to your factory. And that would be the first step towards the Industrial Revolution. All right, we'll see you next time for part number 2 of chapter 22.